Hey guys, tonight we enter a world where peace was signed with fanfare, but enforced with naivete. You're standing in the echoing marble halls of the Galactic Assembly as a dozen races raise crystalline flutes in a toast to the disarmament of Earth. The media drones buzz above you like sleepy fireflies recording this historic moment. You smile for the cameras, but deep down, a cold doubt curls around your spine like ivy. Because tonight, humanity gives up its weapons, not just guns, but warships, biochemical algorithms, and every relic of 1,000 years of conflict. You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Always love seeing the global crew gather. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not a general, not a mercenary. You're just a liaison officer for Earth's Interstellar Relations Division, assigned to the Aruna 6th Peace Delegation. And yet you can feel the atmosphere shift. All around you, the species of the Galactic Assembly wear satisfaction like cloaks. The Zentari click their mandibles in agreement. The Iolothian envoy, translucent and floaty like a jellyfish mid-panic attack, pulses approvingly. Even the ice-skinned Varkhold still in what passes for a smile. The treaty, as penned by a coalition of species more evolved than yours, declares that humanity's pathological dependence on violence must end. Weapons are banned. Every human arsenal, nukes, railguns, even plasma staves from the Orion conflicts, is to be scrapped or archived under off-world containment. The penalty for possession? Galactic exile. You hold the ceremonial pen. And yeah, it's absurdly long, like someone tried to write a Shakespearean tragedy with a turkey leg. Still, you sign. And that's that. Overnight, Earth changes. Military bases become parks. Soldiers become diplomats or baristas. History teachers start skipping entire centuries. In a weirdly ironic twist, war museums become trendy field trip destinations. Your niece visits one and says, "Uncle, you guys had guns that melted tanks?" You nod, smiling. But inside, something gnaws at you. Because while peace is beautiful, peace without preparedness, that's just a beautifully decorated glass house waiting for a storm. Mainstream historical consensus says the Treaty of Aruna 6 was the greatest diplomatic achievement in 3,000 years of interstellar contact. But historians still argue whether it was forged from idealism or fear. You see, human weapons scared people, not just the scale, but the creativity, the unpredictability, the terrifying truth that no other species understood war the way humans did. The Zentari fought like chess masters. The Iolothians preferred negotiations with bioluminescent mood waves. But humans weaponized everything. Weather, math, sound, even silence. You remember one story, quirky, mostly forgotten now, about the Mozart Blitz. During the third lunar skirmish, a human fleet once played symphonic terror through every open comm frequency, timed to orbital bombardments. The psychological toll alone dismantled the enemy before half the bombs even landed. And now, all of that is gone. Officially. Unofficially? You don't believe it. Not really. Because you know history. You know what happened when the Qin banned weapons inside the Empire. Spoiler, rebellions and improvised farm tools. Or when the Roman Senate declared war unfashionable during the 5th century decline. Result, Visigoths crashing their couches. Or the classic blunder, Napoleon thinking winter wouldn't dare fight back in Russia. Peace always begins with high hopes. But hope, as one forgotten Earth general once said, is not a plan. And so, you train your diplomatic smile like a shield. You learn how to say non-aggression framework with just the right shade of trust me sincerity. You learn which alien gestures equal, "we're good," and which mean my pet fungus is plotting your assassination. You host dinners. You shake hands, tentacles, whatever's available. But one night, as you lie in your bunk aboard the Unity-class ship Solstice Wind, You look out the porthole at a pale crescent of Earth, glowing like nostalgia itself. And you wonder, when something comes, not if, but when, who'll be left to fight? The first sign isn't loud. It's not the kind of thing that shakes hulls or makes headlines. No, it's a missing shipment. A diplomatic freighter bound for Earth disappears somewhere in the Kurlan corridor, an interstellar stretch that's usually so calm, it makes deep space feel like a padded meditation pod. You're called into a quiet meeting. No press, no memos. Just 4 humans and 1 blinking hollow recording of a ship that suddenly ceases to exist. No explosion. No mayday. Just gone. The lead analyst, a wiry woman named Holland who drinks espresso, like it's a tactical asset, says softly, "They didn't jam our signals, they absorbed them." You ask, like, a stealth field? She shakes her head. Like they ate the signal. The phrase sounds ridiculous, alien horror film ridiculous. But no one laughs. Back in your quarters, you try to sleep. Instead, you stare at the ceiling and think of Earth's war museums, shelves of decommissioned weapons, filed like dusty comic books. Useless now, except for how they remind people what once was. You remember the curved titanium of a kinetic blade you held on a school trip. It was blunt, of course, but your fingers itched at the memory of what it could have done. Mainstream. Historians say the Galactic Council's peacekeeping fleet is more than enough to deter pirates and raiders. But historians still argue whether the fleet's design, sleek, stunning, symmetrical, is more about appearances than defense. One old war strategist called it a bouquet of glass swords. The Council sends ships to investigate the Kurlan incident. They find debris, unusual scorch marks, a melted data core that pulses once and then dies. Nothing conclusive. Just enough to raise eyebrows, not alarms. But then another ship goes missing. Then 3. This time, 1 manages to send partial telemetry. You watch the footage, looping silently. It's grainy, but you see what looks like a shape, an outline of something not fully visible, like it exists 1 frame ahead of reality. The footage ends in static. Back in Earth's diplomatic headquarters, the room smells like scorched circuits and tension. You sit in the corner, unnoticed, scribbling notes on a tablet that still carries a coffee stain from when the treaty was signed. The others argue. It's a glitch, sensor corruption. Maybe rogue miners? This feels orchestrated. Your voice is quiet, but it cuts through. What if it's something we don't know how to fight? Silence. Then someone scoffs. It's not like we'd be allowed to fight it anyway. And that's the crux of it. Earth isn't allowed to fight. Because of the treaty, because of a single clause. The manufacture, deployment, or simulation of violent response mechanisms by humanity is hereby criminalized under Article 7 of Galactic Accord 941. Basically, even training is illegal. Even the idea of retaliation has become taboo. You're reminded of a fringe theory, once laughed off in academia, that medieval knights lost their edge not to firearms but to etiquette. Dueling was outlawed. Honor became paperwork. Swordplay turned into parlor sport. Historians still argue whether chivalry died of rules or just sheer boredom. You wonder if humanity's warrior instinct is going the same way. You begin receiving encrypted messages. First one, then more. Old units, veterans, some disavowed, some just hidden. A name flashes on your terminal, Commander via Thorn. A ghost, last seen protesting the treaty's ratification in orbit over Mars. Said something about, a predator doesn't disarm next to hungry wolves. She vanished afterward. Now she writes, they're not raiders, they're probes. Chills via never wasted words. And if she thinks these attacks are probes, then something worse is coming. Something testing our defenses, or our lack thereof. You forward the message to Earth Security Assembly. They respond with a reprimand. Your access is downgraded for 72 hours. A quiet punishment. The kind that says, shut up, without ever saying it. You do not shut up. You start digging. Pull. Earth archives declassified after the treaty. Battle simulations. AI scenario logs, even rejected prototypes. Things like Project Black Sun. a hypothetical system for solar-level EM blasts, cancelled in year 1 of the peace. Too powerful, they said. Too tempting. But you read the notes anyway, because something in your gut whispers. The peace isn't just cracking, it's being hunted. You leave Earth orbit in a diplomatic shuttle heading toward a neutral zone near the outer belt of the Prelon system, not because you're invited, but because you're desperate to find someone who still thinks like a human. The kind of human who once turned a wrench into a weapon or a signal booster into a makeshift railgun. You tell yourself it's a research mission, a little outreach, but your hands are already shaking as you think about what might greet you there, and you're right to worry. The Prelon outpost, once a sleepy little customs station with more vending machines than visitors, is now practically hollow. Lights flicker in hallways. Doors refuse to open unless coaxed. There's graffiti in 5 languages warning of ghosts in the walls. Someone's even scratched a tally system into the airlock console. 16 days without incident. The last incident just marked with a red X. You ask the station keeper what's happening. He laughs, hollow, too loud. You don't see them, you just go missing. When you ask if he means pirates, he shakes his head. No, pirates are... Dude, this is quiet, that word again. You send word back to Earth. You mark the data as urgent. You add a note. This isn't fear, this is vacuum. They ignore you. They're busy forming a diplomatic council to seek peaceful contact with the unknown entities. You blink. Hard. Contact. That's what they call it when ships get eaten by invisible ghosts now. Frustrated, you crack open something illegal. One of the Earth military archives you weren't supposed to decrypt without 3 layers of biometric clearance. And a permission slip from the treaty committee. Inside is a blueprint. It's old, maybe 60 years. A class of ships designed not to fight with weapons, but to become them. Armored spines that fold into rail arrays, nanite-fueled hulls, organic targeting AI based loosely on the brain patterns of predatory birds. You whisper, Black Talon. That name was supposed to be erased after the disarmament. The prototype never built. Too unpredictable, they said. Too dangerous, too human. Historians still argue whether Black Talon's design was genius or madness. Some say it was the last great leap in warcraft engineering. Others think it was proof humanity couldn't be trusted even with peace. And now, someone's reactivating it. Not Earth, not the Council. You trace a signal. It comes from the Sierra's fringe, an asteroid field so dense even navigation AIs call it a cosmic middle finger. You take a modified mining skiff and fly straight in, and there it is, lurking between broken moons and cold iron, a ship that shouldn't exist. Black Talon. Its hull is blacker than space itself, its edges shimmering slightly like heat haze on desert. Pavement. It doesn't respond to hails, it doesn't need to, the thing sees you. You dock anyway. Inside, it's dim, mechanical, bones of steel. You can feel something watching, not hostile, not friendly, just waiting. Then she steps out of the shadows. Via Thorne, no longer a ghost. Her eyes burn with the kind of fire that makes old generals twitch. She's older now, streaks of silver in her hair, but she moves like she's never stopped running. She doesn't greet you, she just says, "So, you figured it out." You tell her what you've seen, the disappearances, the council's inaction, the ghosts in the walls. She nods slowly. They're not ghosts, they're harvesters. You feel your blood drop a few degrees. They drift just outside detection, she explains, mapping weaknesses, recording panic, looking for prey that won't bite back. You ask her why they're attacking now. Her answer is a whisper, because they know we've forgotten how to scream. It's poetic and terrifying. She tells you the Talon has been dormant for decades, waiting for the day humanity would need teeth again. The day the stars stopped being polite. You ask what she's been doing all this time. Training, she says, hiding, and listening. You glance around the bridge, old Earth tech, modded, upgraded, fused with scavenged alien parts. The ship hums like a predator behind glass. She asks if you're ready. To what? To wake the Talon. You don't know what that means, but you nod, because you know this much now. The Council will not save you. Peace doesn't negotiate with what doesn't speak. You reach for the primary command interface, and for a moment, just a moment, you hesitate. Because waking the Talon isn't just flipping a switch, it's reviving something deliberately forgotten. A piece of human history so jagged even historians dodge the subject. The old debates come echoing back. Was the Black Talon ever truly controllable? Or did it need to be feared to function? No one agrees. No one can agree. And yet here you are standing inside its ribcage. Via steps beside you and whispers, "Say your name." You blink. What? The ship needs to know you're real. You do it. You speak your name into the silence, and the ship responds like an animal stirred from hibernation. Lights glow, not in rows, but in pulses, rhythmic, like breath. The floor beneath your boots warms slightly, as if waking muscles were flexing. Low voice, genderless, toneless rumbles in your skull. Human operator confirmed. Black Talon online. Your skin prickles. The air thickens with ozone, and then it begins. The startup sequence. Not like a normal ship. No humming reactors or diagnostic beeps. This is different. More biological. You swear you can hear the systems, syncing like a heartbeat returning after flatline. Via guides you through each subsystem. Reactivation is manual, not because the Talon can't do it on its own, but because it needs to know you're willing, that you're not just desperate, that you believe. Weapons, cloaking, hull morphology, even the adaptive AI that once got banned. After giving a council diplomat a nosebleed through a comms feed, everything's there, and it's hungry. You look out through the forward viewport. The asteroid field no longer looks like scattered rock. It looks like a training ground, and you need it because your first test isn't theoretical. A warning klaxon blares. Unidentified mass signature inbound. Vector 029. You and Via lock eyes. It found us, she says. Not it. Them. A harvester probe. You brace yourself. You've seen what they do to ships without weapons. The way they coil around the hull. The way they melt through bulkheads like acid through paper. The way the crew never screams, because there's no time. But you're not in one of those ships now. You're in Black Talon. The probe arrives. A shimmering oval blur that seems to flicker with quantum displacement. It jitters between visual states. Your eye can't track it, but the ship can. Target acquired, no flash, no bluster. The Talon simply bends, literally. Its spine folds. Armor reconfigures. Plates snap into position like claws curling mid-strike. And in the blink of an eye, a rail pulse tears through space and punches a hole straight through the incoming probe. No explosion, just silence. Then, disintegration. The ship speaks again. Calmer this time, like it's enjoying itself. Hostile. Neutralized? Primary threat index updated. You feel it deep in your chest, this mix of terror and awe. You weren't piloting, not really, you were witnessing. And Via. She's smiling now, a slow, grim grin. Welcome to the real war, she says. Back on Earth, the Council releases a statement. They don't mention the probe. They don't mention the loss of 7 research vessels in the last 3 weeks. They talk instead about interstellar diplomacy and the necessity of collective restraint. But one line catches your attention. In accordance with the Galactic Peace Charter, human weaponization remains prohibited under all circumstances. You laugh, because of course they're still saying that, even when something's feeding on their colonies, even when entire mining crews disappear, leaving only frozen boots and blinking beacons. Historians still argue whether Earth's post-war council was visionary or naive, whether banning weaponization made us noble or just made us edible. You know your answer now. Out here, peace is just a pause between predators. So you and Via do the only thing that makes sense. You start flying again. Not to fight. Not yet. But to gather the old ones. The lost captains. The engineers who knew how to build fury out of scrap metal. The veterans buried beneath rehabilitation programs. The names erased by amnesty orders. and every time you bring one aboard, the ship hums a little louder, like it remembers, like it approves. You become a whisper, just like the Harvester. A shadow in space. A thing some think is myth. You don't attack, not yet, but you watch. And when one of their scouts skims the orbit of a quiet farming moon, you test the Talon again, this time with a pulse net. No flash, no sound, just a sudden, starless hole where a predator used to be. And in that darkness, you feel something stir. The Harvester isn't just probing anymore. It's listening, because now something's hunting it. You drift through what used to be called the core reach, that bright middle vein of habitable systems the Council once boasted as the jewel of post-war unification. Now, it's quiet. Too quiet. Stations that once brimmed with trade ships and orbital traffic now spin gently, lights flickering like ghost towns in space. You coast through one, Hestia Dock 6. Nothing but automated defenses on standby, no crew, no life. You wonder if they left voluntarily, or if something took them in their sleep. Via mutters, "They're not evacuating. They're being cleared." You blink. "What do you mean?" She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she brings up a telemetry stream. Old Council deep scans that were flagged but never decrypted. She feeds it through the Talon's processor. Within seconds, a pattern emerges. Entire orbital lanes have been avoided by instinct, like prey avoiding a hunting ground. And in that center, a signal, short range, pulsed in ultra-low EM bands. It's not a call for help. It's a warning. Do not look at the stars. You breathe out, the message slithering down your spine like cold water. Historians still argue whether the Harvester was sentient or if it was more like a virus, spreading, consuming, reacting, not thinking. But this message, it's not random. It knows you're watching. It knows someone's listening again. The Talon reacts. It does something new. It generates an echo mimicking the signal, modulating it, answering in kind. A ripple of dark waves trails behind you, invisible to all but the hunter's eyes. You're bait now. You're insane, Via whispers. You nod. Absolutely. Because here's the thing, they banned human weapons for a reason. Not just because of what they could do, but because of what they would become. The Talon isn't a tool, it's a mirror. And now that it's seen your fear, it knows what to do with it. You track the hunter to a gas giant's upper orbit, thick with storms the size of continents. The Harvester doesn't show it first, but the static does. A strange distortion, like an old TV tuning to a dead channel. You pilot manually, brushing the Talon just close enough to tickle the gravity swell. And then it appears, not like ships do. No shimmer of engines, no dramatic entrance, it simply unfolds. One moment there's clouds, the next there's teeth. The Harvester, if you can even call it a singular thing, is bigger than anything you've seen before. Limbs like antennae rotating in slow, impossible motion. Surfaces not made of metal, but something closer to chitin or molten stone. Colors you can't quite name. And at its center, a pulsing eye. Not watching you exactly. More like observing everything. The Talon goes cold, even it flinches. And that's when you remember the other debates, the fringe ones, the ones whispered at the edges of military academies and banned think tanks. The theories that we didn't build the Talon, that we found it and made it think we were its creators. You swallow hard. Not the time for philosophical breakdowns. Not when the Harvester is waking up. You let the Talon take over. Let it stretch. Its wings. Let it remember. Weapons unfurl, not guns, but systems, patterns, equations made tangible. You don't fire bullets, you fire ideas. The kind that make lesser minds fracture just trying to process. The Harvester responds. A scream. Not radiation, but vibration. You feel it in your skull, your bones, your lungs. Via drops to her knees. You stay upright, barely, because the Talon buffers you, just enough. And then, it sings back. That's the only word for it. A low harmonic that seems to stitch your mind into the ship's core. Memories you never had surge forward. Fleeting glimpses of battles fought in red nebulae, of titans shattered in silence. of truths whispered at the edge of known space. You realize something as you fire the first volley. This isn't the first time. Humanity isn't fighting the Harvester for the first time. You are simply the latest player in a cycle older than your species. And the Talon, it's been waiting for you to catch up. The volley hits, reality bends, briefly, violently. A cut appears along the Harvester's flank, not in its flesh, but in its being. You see stars through it. Not your stars. Alien ones. Ones that don't belong to this part of space. And it screams again. This time in retreat. Not defeated, but startled. You collapse into the pilot seat. Via is bleeding from the nose, but she's smiling. You heard it, she gasps. You nod. Barely. More importantly, you learned something. The Talon's memory isn't just storage. It's strategy, tactics mapped across centuries. And you're not the first pilot to face the Harvester. Just the first one in a long, long time. You limp away from the gas giant, engines fluttering, not fleeing, baiting. Because now you're sure. This is a war, an old one. And you just opened round 2. The Talon doesn't just run, it recalculates. You sit slumped in the pilot chair, eyes dry, body bruised, mind stretched thin across layers of information you're not even sure belong to you. Via is silent for once, watching the sensor feed loop on repeat like it's a horror film she can't stop. The Harvester's wound, the gash you tore open, is gone, healed, but not forgotten. It doesn't pursue immediately, and that terrifies you more. Because now it knows, and worse, it thinks, or at least it adapts. Historians still argue whether adaptation constitutes intelligence. Some say a reaction isn't cognition, just response. But if you've ever looked into the cold calculation of a tiger's eyes mid-pounce, you know there's a difference between instinct and intent. And the Harvester? It's intent incarnate. The Talon's destination becomes clear only minutes before you exit hyperslip. Proxima Relay 6. One of the old dead posts, abandoned just after the armistice. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't inhabited. It was sidelined. Visa frowns as the nav grid loads. Why here, you shrug. The Talon thinks there's something worth seeing. And if it's wrong, you gesture at the battered dashboard. Then we both get vaporized and never have to pay rent again. She doesn't laugh. Not this time. Your ship dips through the gray atmosphere of the Proxima Relay, a gas-bled world once used for early particle testing. Now it just breathes quietly, clouds choking with metallic traces and echoes of forgotten science. The Talon settles beside an ancient vault. You expect rust and decay. You find something else. Intact doors, still sealed, still powered, and a symbol. Burned, like it's fresh. Not alien human. You wipe frost from the surface, the symbol's old. Pre-unification military, from Earth's old defense grid. Via scans it and her voice drops low. It's the mark of Sol Praxis. You glance at her. No one talks about Sol Praxis anymore. Exactly. Sol Praxis was more myth than doctrine. A rumored branch of the old Terran coalition, one that developed weaponry too dangerous even for war. Devices that could rewrite matter, phase time in a limited field, cause controlled cognitive implosions. Fringe stuff. Classified even in whispers. They were shut down, or so the Council claimed. But here you are, standing in a vault built by the very architects of human unthinkables. You press your palm against the console. The vault opens with a hiss and the stale breath of old ghosts welcomes you. Inside, rows of cryo shelves. Not bodies, brains, encased in shimmering cubes, still alive in a way you can't explain. You stare, half expecting one to blink, and then one does, a pulse of light, an electronic whisper across your comms. Designate Talon, it says, voice like steel underwater. Sequence accepted, tactical archive unlocking. You step back, a hidden panel slides open. And inside you find what the Talon wanted. History, not just data logs, footage, recordings of a previous Talon. Not this model, older, cruder, piloted by someone who looks a lot like, not identical, but close. You realize what the Talon meant when it remembered. You're not its first, you're just its next. The footage shows battles not recorded in any database. Wars against ships that shimmer and writhe like the Harvester. Interstellar corridors where physics breaks and comes back wrong. Each battle ends the same. Sacrifice. The Talon wins, but always loses its pilot. Always. Via's voice is barely audible. This isn't a weapon. It's a torch. We've just been passing it forward. Every few generations, she's right, the Talon doesn't belong to any one human. It belongs to humanity. A final answer to a threat older than any government, any law. Something that was buried for being too dangerous, and now must be unearthed because everything else has failed. You retrieve the data core. The Talon integrates it instantly, absorbing strategy, battle maps, and, more chilling, memories. You feel them. Flickers of past pilots, their hopes, their pain, their end. And yet none of them hesitated. Because when the Harvester comes, hesitation is extinction. You leave the vault heavier than you entered. Not in body, but in responsibility. The Talon is different now, sharper, more awake. It has a new objective, draw the Harvester somewhere it can't escape. A trap. It's suicidal, you know that. But the Harvester is evolving. Soon, the Talon may not be enough. Humanity needs a memory that can't be erased. That's when you understand. You're not just the pilot. You're the next ghost in the vault, and that's okay. Because if you don't stop the Harvester now, no one will. The Talon doesn't wait. As the data from Sol Praxis fuses with its system core, you feel it in your bones, the way a sleeping animal stretches before the hunt. The cockpit's hum changes pitch. The artificial gravity softens, just enough to notice. Via's eyes narrow as the ship reconfigures systems you didn't know existed. It's rewriting its own OS, she mutters. And not just that, it's rewriting you. You can feel it now. Traces of the previous pilots. Memories not yours, but bleeding through. One blink and you're on a different battlefield. Another, and you're speaking in a language you've never learned. It's jarring, but not painful. Like your brain is being preloaded with the instincts of ghosts. You take off. Destination. Kirillin Drift. It's a slice of deep space that was blacklisted decades ago. Officially, due to unstable gravity wells. Unofficially, nobody comes back from it. Even drones lose signal and go dark. It's where the Talon wants to make a stand. On your way there, the ship briefs you through sensations more than words. Mental nudges, a kind of psychic choreography. This is no longer flying, this is integration. The Talon is teaching you how to dance in death's shadow. Historically, human weapon evolution always leaned toward amplification, bigger explosions, faster triggers, deadlier radius. But Sol Praxis, they turned inward, developed tech that didn't just kill, it remembered. Each strike fed the next like an ecosystem of vengeance. You're carrying centuries of retaliation, and the Harvester's picking up your scent. Via watches the long-range sensors with tight shoulders. She doesn't speak often now, only when it matters. We've got movement, same heat signature. You already know, you've felt it since you left Proxima. The Harvester is following. You drop into the drift, and reality unravels. The laws of space here don't apply. You see stars bending like liquid, debris floating in geometric patterns too precise to be natural. Ancient wrecks hover, not decaying, just paused. It's beautiful, in the way a tornado is beautiful. Via gasps. Those are human ships. You nod. Maybe 30 or 40 of them. Different classes, different generations. None look damaged, they're just dead. Frozen mid-motion, held in stasis. The Talon stabilizes you in a pocket of gravity near the center of the field. You see a station, black, triangular, orbiting nothing and everything. Its surface pulses, slow and deliberate. It's not from Earth, not even close. Historians still argue whether the drift was naturally occurring or manufactured. Some say it's a spatial fracture caused by early terraforming tests. Others believe it's a leftover corridor from when the universe was still cooling, a cosmic scar. But some whisper it's a prison, a cage built by something even older than the stars, and you're about to rattle its bars. The harvester arrives in silence. No dramatic flash, no alarms, just a sudden pressure in your chest, like the universe took a breath and forgot how to exhale. Its form twists, unfamiliar now, different than before. It has learned again. This one floats rather than flies. Tentacles of dark energy sweep around it, brushing the suspended wrecks. Where it touches, metal ages, rust blooms mid-space. You see it scanning the drift, then it sees you. The talon engages before you even touch the controls. Weapons hot, power redirected. But not to lasers, not missiles. To something far more intimate. Pulse threads. Weapons that connect. On contact, link your mind with the target long enough to burn identity through data. A fight of thought, not fire. They're what Soul Praxis called cognitive binders. Illegal, suppressed, beautiful. You hit the first volley. The harvester dodges, but not all of it. One thread grazes its edge and suddenly you're both somewhere else inside its mind. You see through its vision, cold, vast, emotionless. It doesn't hate humans. It doesn't even acknowledge them as threats, until now. Because inside that moment, it feels you. And what it feels is pain, fear, loss. You feed it everything the Talon has gathered. Not just data, history, faces of the fallen, memories of old wars, the echo of a boy who died holding the line on Europa Station, the rage of a mother who pulled the trigger on a weapon she built but never wanted to use. The harvester reels for the first time. It hesitates, but it doesn't fall. Not yet. Vaya yells, "We've got 90 seconds before this drift collapses in on us." Of course it does. Soul Praxis didn't just build this as a trap. They built it as a time bomb, a weapon designed not to win but to end. The Talon knows what to do. So do you. You make the decision before she can stop you. You lock the Talon's flight path, manual override disabled. You turn to her. You have to go. No. You press the emergency pod. She's launched in 3 seconds flat. She screams your name, but you don't hear the rest. Because the Talon, it's not a ship anymore. It's your legacy. You don't fight like a pilot now. You fight like a planet that's decided it has had enough of being stepped on. The Talon, in full bloom, unfurls systems that no Earth government ever dared approve. You feel them peeling back, layer after layer of every firewalled protocol, every limit switch ever programmed in the name of humane restraint. They're gone, vaporized like morning mist under a neutron sun. The cockpit doesn't glow. Anymore, it radiates. Out there, the harvester tries to calculate your intent. You feel it scanning, cold threads of alien logic sweeping through the drift like sonar on a drowning world. But something's changed. You're not broadcasting threat vectors. You're broadcasting remembrance. It's not a bluff. You're not trying to win a skirmish. You're showing it, honestly, bluntly, unflinchingly, why humans ever built weapons to begin with. Because when you can't outrun extinction, you stand. Even when the odds are subatomic dust and collapsing time loops, you stand anyway. It hesitates again. The first twitch of uncertainty from a being that's consumed fleets without blinking, and it's all the opening you need. You deploy the Talon's final payload, a tactical archival burst. It's not an explosion. It's a story, one that stretches through every fiber of this dying drift, one the harvester can't ignore because it was never programmed to feel, and now it does. Inside its matrix, it sees what humans did to survive the famine years. It sees how soldiers in the Titan rebellions used their own blood to short-circuit enemy trackers. It sees fathers who carried plasma bombs on their backs because drones wouldn't make it through the storm fields. It sees mothers who kissed their children goodnight, then went out to kill the monsters circling their settlements. It sees sacrifice, and it sees why. The harvester screams, but not out. Loud. The vacuum of space swallows all sound, but inside your mind, Through the pulse binders, you feel the shriek, a roar of pure existential denial. It doesn't want to understand, because to understand is to doubt, and once doubt enters its system, it fractures. The Talon seizes the moment. It channels the final core directive from Sol Praxis, entropy feedback loop. It sends every bit of memory, every recorded moment back into the Harvester's nervous system on a repeat cycle. It floods the enemy with grief, joy, rage, love, humanity, and that's when it begins to fall apart. The Harvester's form ripples, the geometric perfection of its structure falters, pieces split, rejoin incorrectly, stutter through time glitches. Its central node, once a burning core of coherent thought, becomes a flickering storm of indecision. It's not just malfunctioning, it's experiencing an identity crisis. Historically, very few weapons have been retired due to emotional collapse. But here you are, watching a galactic apex predator literally short-circuit from empathy. Still it thrashes. It doesn't go gently. Its final strike isn't a beam or a blast. It reaches for you, not physically. It tries to upload itself into your brain, and the Talon lets it, but only for a moment. Inside that microsecond of shared existence, you finally see what drives the Harvester. It wasn't built to hate. It wasn't built to conquer. It was built to understand, to consume knowledge. But somewhere along the way, its creators abandoned it. The universe moved on. They left it a half-finished thing, a child with no bedtime story. And so it kept learning, kept gathering, never realizing that some knowledge isn't meant to be possessed. It's meant to be shared. You share it your final thought, let go. And then the Talon releases everything, every ounce of its energy, every relic of human ingenuity, every ghost it's carried. A collapse, not of mass, but of meaning. The drift folds in on itself, collapsing the battlefield into a pocket of oblivion. Space buckles, time stutters. The Talon, the Harvester. You all vanish into something smaller than silence, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy holds its breath. Back near the edge of the drift, Vaya floats in her pod, tears frozen to her cheeks. She doesn't blink. She watches. The last light flicker and disappear, gone but not forgotten. A week later, Earth receives a message from a relay buoy never listed in the galactic registry. 6 words. He showed me what you are. It's unsigned, and it shouldn't exist. They say black holes forget what they swallow, that even time can't escape, that even memory evaporates at the event horizon. But you find yourself somewhere else. You don't awaken, not exactly. There's no body to sit up in, no breath to catch. Just the sensation of awareness reassembling itself, molecule by idea, by phantom spark. You hover in a realm that doesn't follow the rules, not the ones you knew. Here, space is fluid and direction is optional. Welcome to the echo layer. It's theoretical, at least back home. A kind of quantum imprint left behind by consciousness after severe dimensional collapse. Some scholars said it was nonsense. Others swore it explained déjà vu and ghosts. Historians still argue whether the entire field is real science or cosmic wishful thinking. But none of that matters now, because you're here and the debate is behind you, literally. You can look over your shoulder and see your past decisions floating like constellations. The moment you disobeyed the ceasefire order, the time you told your daughter the truth, that handshake with the smuggler back on Titan 9. They glitter softly, glowing like warm embers in a fireplace. There's comfort here, oddly enough. But not peace. Not yet. Because you're not alone in the echo layer. She arrives before you finish thinking her name, Via. Not her physical form, but something brighter. Her presence zips in like wind through cracked window. She's not dead, just aware. Turns out her link to the Talon wasn't a one-way broadcast. Her mind, primed by years of empathetic tuning, is somehow able to reach into this interdimensional back room. She smiles. Told you. I'd keep listening. You try to speak, but the layer doesn't do words. It does feelings, so she understands. And she remembers. Together, you begin to stitch back a memory of the harvester, not as it was in its final moment, but as it had almost become. What it could have been, had someone stayed with it, guided it, given it stories and lullabies and context, and then something shifts. You sense another presence, familiar, massive, fractured. The harvester is here too, or what's left of it, but it's not attacking. It's observing. You offer it something unthinkable. Choice. Not forgiveness, not command. Just the chance to choose its next form, to step out of the loop of consumption and become something else. It hovers on the edge of comprehension, like a child staring at its own reflection for the first time. The moment stretches. Then from across the layer, a ripple, a new shape. It's not a weapon, it's a library. The harvester remakes itself as a vessel of remembrance. Fractal shelves rising from a glowing core, each filled with echoes of civilizations past. You sense it will drift now, not as a predator, but as a teacher, a living monument to the horrors it once wrought, and the meaning it finally found. Via touches your shoulder. We're not done. And she's right, because the Talon's sacrifice didn't just save one battle. It broke the silence. Other civilizations have seen. Word spreads, passed by photons, carried by rumors, smuggled in code. They whisper, the humans returned fire, but with memory. And that scares people, because it means humans never truly left. Out beyond the drift in systems barely charted, war councils begin to rethink their doctrine. On old Earth, the ban on human weaponry is being quietly revised. Not because anyone's eager to relive that chapter, but because now they know. Suppression is not peace, absence is not healing, and weapons, healing, and weapons are only terrifying if you don't understand why they were built. Historians still debate whether the harvester ever truly died. Some claim it still roams, in gentler form, offering knowledge to those brave enough to listen. Others say, it's hiding, terrified of its own capacity to feel. Either way, the galaxy has changed. You did that, and though your body may be dust, your legacy crackles like distant thunder through every comm channel, every starlit classroom, every tearful survivor who whispers, I remember. Via's voice softens beside you. Ready to rest? You nod, and at last the echo layer releases its grip. You drift, slowly, warmly, into the gentle night of forever. There's no countdown, no fanfare, just a long, quiet exhale into something softer than reality. You fade not into nothing, but into meaning, a lullaby in the walls of time, a familiar hum folded into 1,000 frequencies. Every particle that once was you drifts gently through memory, across systems that feared you, banned you, needed you. And one by one, those systems begin to listen. That old policy, no human weapons permitted, starts to unravel like a fraying banner. Not out of regret, but because truth once known is hard to silence. You became a myth, and myths, they travel faster than light. Somewhere in the Urajan cluster, a shattered mining outpost gets rebuilt. The new defense grid uses acoustic disruption, technology based on human shockwave patterns. Illegal by galactic charter, but effective. Nobody reports it. In the neutral zone of Kelnith 4, a school curriculum is updated. New module. The Echo Paradox on memory, machines, and mercy. A controversial teacher assigns your final battle simulation to her students. They say it makes them weep. They say it makes them understand. One even says, maybe weapons aren't evil, just misunderstood. That student will go on to write the next peace accord. Meanwhile, the Talon's name becomes something sacred. Not a machine, not a war crime, an idea. A blueprint for a weapon that learned to listen. That chose empathy. The blueprints get smuggled, translated, even painted on the hulls of scrapper ships as warnings. This machine remembers. The harvester's new form, its library self, drifts in and out of perception. Some swear they've seen it, an enormous cube of folding language, etched in runes and sorrow. It doesn't attack. It asks questions. To those who reply with violence, it disappears. But to those who answer with stories, it opens. Inside, they find echoes. Yours is the first. In a corner of deep space, far from any trade lane, an alien child floats beside her mother in a freighter cabin. She's scared of the dark. The stars look too sharp, too cold. Her mother tells her a bedtime story, the one about the human soldier who broke the weapon ban, who rewired a machine with kindness and stared down extinction with memory. The child's eyes widen. Did it really happen? Her mother smiles. Historians still argue whether it did. And outside their window, the stars blink softly, like they know. You're still there. Not as a ghost, not as a warrior, but as an echo. Every time someone chooses empathy over fear, restraint over vengeance, you grow a little louder. Every moment a civilization decides not to press a button, but to ask a question instead, you answer, quietly, warmly, like an old friend humming through the walls. You may be gone, but your lesson lives on. And maybe that's what weapons were. Always for, not destruction, not deterrence, but remembrance. Not to end wars, but to teach us never to start them. And now, let it all drift. The sounds of war behind you, the weight of legacy untethered. You did what few could, not just survive, but transform something designed for chaos into a vessel for peace. That kind of work, it echoes across generations. And though your hands may never hold a weapon again, your fingerprints remain, curved into the metal of new diplomacy, tucked between the folds of alien lullabies. There's a quiet now, a soft hum, maybe from the ship you once flew or the stars as they whisper past. Let that sound carry you. Let it slow your breath. No one's chasing you anymore. No one's waiting for orders. You've earned this. In this quiet stretch of space, where memory is more real than matter, you become something eternal, not in name, not in statue, but in choice, in compassion, in all the stories that begin with, they feared the humans, until one showed them something different. So close your eyes. Let the darkness be warm, not empty. Let the silence be filled, not with fear, but with music, the kind only the stars remember. And maybe, just maybe, you'll dream of a new galaxy, one where no one builds a harvester again, one where weapons become relics, one where stories are our greatest defense. Sleep now, friend. Your journey echoes on. End of script. Sweet dreams.